On the very day I was supposed to celebrate my engagement, I discovered my sister had betrayed me by secretly being with my fiancé. When I confronted my family, my mother dismissed my pain, insisting my sister's happiness mattered more. I silently walked away. 3 years later, both of them unexpectedly appeared at my doorstep, kneeling and begging desperately for my help. The laughter of my guests echoed through the hall, but I couldn't hear it anymore. My eyes were fixed on the doorway where a truth I never imagined was unfolding. My fiancé's arms were wrapped around my sister, their whispers slicing through my heart. The ring on my finger suddenly felt heavier than iron, burning against my skin. And in that instant the celebration of my engagement turned into the funeral of my trust. The hall was alive with music, the kind of cheerful rhythm that makes people sway without thinking. My relatives were gathered, glasses raised, voices loud, celebrating what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I had spent weeks planning every detail: the flowers, the lights, the food, the seating arrangements. I wanted everything perfect because this was the day I was to be honored as a bride-to-be. But perfection is fragile. It takes only one moment to shatter it. I remember stepping away from the crowd, searching for my fiancé. He had disappeared from the hall, and I thought perhaps he was nervous, rehearsing his speech or fixing his tie. I wanted to find him, to share a quiet smile before we stood together in front of everyone. My feet carried me down the corridor, past the kitchen, past the storage room until I reached the door to the back lounge. I opened it. Inside, the sight froze me. My sister, my own blood, was in his arms. His lips brushed her forehead, her hand rested against his chest, and they looked at each other with a tenderness that should have belonged to me. My breath caught, my heart slammed against my ribs, and the world tilted. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply stood there watching betrayal unfold in silence. They noticed me. My sister's face drained of color, her mouth opening as though words might save her. My fiancé stepped back, guilt flashing across his eyes. But no explanation could erase what I had seen. The silence between us was louder than any confession. I turned and walked out. Back in the hall, the celebration continued. Guests laughed, children ran between tables, and the cake stood proudly at the center. My mother spotted me and hurried over, concern etched on her face. "What's wrong?" she asked. I told her. I expected shock, anger, maybe even comfort. Instead she sighed, her tone sharp. "Your sister has always been fragile," she said. "She finally found happiness. Don't ruin it for her." Her words cut deeper than the betrayal itself. My pain was dismissed, my future erased, and my mother's loyalty handed to the one who had betrayed me. I stared at her, unable to believe that a mother could look at her daughter's broken heart and choose indifference. She touched my arm lightly, urging me to smile, to keep the celebration alive. I pulled away. I couldn't stay. I couldn't breathe in that hall filled with laughter that no longer belonged to me. I slipped out quietly, unnoticed by most, my footsteps echoing against the pavement outside. The night air was cold, biting against my skin, but it felt cleaner than the suffocating warmth inside. I wandered through the streets, past shops closing for the night, past couples holding hands, past strangers who didn't know my world had just collapsed. Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall where anyone could see. I ducked into a quiet alley, leaned against the wall, and let the sobs escape silently. My chest ached, my hands trembled, and my mind replayed the image of my sister and fiancé over and over. That night I made a vow. I would never return to that house. I would never allow them to see me broken again. The days that followed were heavy. I packed my things in silence, leaving behind dresses, gifts, photographs. I moved into a small apartment across town, a place where no one knew my name. The walls were bare, the rooms quiet, but it was mine. I built a routine to survive. Early mornings with tea, long walks to clear my head, evenings spent reading books I had ignored for years. Each day was heavy, but the silence gave me space to breathe. I avoided family gatherings, ignored phone calls, and erased numbers from my phone. My mother tried once to reach me, but her words were the same: "Your sister needs you." I hung up before she could finish. My sister never called. My ex-fiancé didn't dare. They had chosen each other, and I had chosen solitude. Yet solitude was not peace. Bitterness grew inside me, curling around my heart like vines. I thought of them often, not with longing, but with a burning anger that refused to fade. I remembered the way my sister smiled when she stole what was mine, the way my mother dismissed me as though I were nothing. I carried those memories like scars, hidden but permanent. There were nights when I dreamed of confronting them, of shouting the words I had swallowed. But when morning came, I returned to my quiet routines. I worked, I cooked, I cleaned, I lived. People around me saw a woman moving forward, but inside I was still standing in that back room watching betrayal unfold. One small incident stays with me even now. A neighbor knocked on my door one evening, asking if I could help carry her groceries upstairs. I agreed, and as we walked together she spoke about her husband waiting at home. Her words were casual but they cut deep. I smiled politely, but inside I thought of the husband I would never have, the family I had lost before it even began. That night I sat alone at my table, staring at the empty chair across from me, and the bitterness grew stronger. 3 years passed this way. Quiet mornings, lonely nights, routines that kept me alive but never truly healed me. I learned to live without them, but I never forgave. My world had shattered, and though I had rebuilt the pieces into something livable, the cracks remained. I carried them with me, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the day when the past would return to my doorstep. It was a quiet evening, the kind I had grown used to. The kettle whistled softly in my kitchen, and I was preparing tea when a knock echoed through the apartment. At first, I thought it was my neighbor again, asking for sugar or help with her groceries. But the knock was heavier, slower, almost hesitant. I walked to the door, my steps cautious, and when I opened it, the sight before me nearly stopped my breath. There they were. My sister and the man who had once been my fiancé, kneeling on the cold concrete outside my door. Their faces were worn, their clothes wrinkled, their eyes hollow. My sister's hair was tangled, her cheeks streaked with tears. He looked thinner, his shoulders slumped, his pride stripped away. For a moment I thought I was dreaming, that the ghosts of my past had come to haunt me. But the chill in the air, the desperation in their posture, told me this was real. "Please," my sister whispered, her voice trembling. "We need you." I stood frozen, gripping the doorframe as though it might hold me steady. The sight of them kneeling, begging, was something I had imagined in my darkest fantasies, but never believed I would see. My heart pounded, torn between satisfaction and fury. They began to speak, their words tumbling over each other. My ex-fiance's voice cracked as he explained how everything had fallen apart. The business he had invested in had collapsed, debts piled up and friends turned away. My sister added her own story, how she had been abandoned by those who once praised her, how illness had drained her strength, how they had nowhere else to go. Their voices shook, their hands clasped together as if unity might soften my heart. I listened, but inside me a storm raged. Anger surged first, sharp and hot. How dare they come to me after tearing my life apart? Then pity crept in, unwanted, whispering that they were broken, that suffering had humbled them. Revenge stirred too, tempting me to slam the door, to let them taste the loneliness I had endured. And yet another part of me hesitated, curious to see how far their desperation would go. I crossed my arms, staring down at them. "Why here?" I asked, my voice steady though my chest trembled. "Why me?" My sister's eyes filled with tears. "Because you're the only one left," she said. "Mother, she doesn't speak to us anymore." Everyone turned away. "We thought you might," her words trailed off, heavy with shame. I let the silence stretch, watching them squirm. Then I spoke again, sharper this time. "You expect me to forget what you did? To open my door as if nothing happened?" He lowered his head, his voice barely audible. "We know we don't deserve it. But we're begging you. Just a chance." Their desperation was palpable, but I wasn't ready to yield. I wanted to see how deep their humility ran. So I tested them. "Stand up," I ordered. They obeyed, shaky on their feet. "If you want my help, prove it. Tell me exactly why you betrayed me. No excuses. No lies." My sister's lips trembled. She glanced at him, then back at me. "I thought I loved him," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I was selfish. I didn't care about your happiness. I only cared about mine." He spoke next, his tone heavy with regret. "I was weak. I wanted comfort and I let myself be drawn to her. I destroyed everything. I know that." Their words were raw, but I wasn't sure if they were sincere or rehearsed. I studied their faces, searching for cracks. My sister's tears seemed genuine, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably. His eyes, once proud, now carried a dullness that spoke of defeat. Still, I wasn't satisfied. If I let you in, I said slowly, you'll follow my rules. No questions, no complaints. You'll do what I say when I say it. If you break that, you're out. Do you understand? They nodded quickly, desperation shining in their eyes. I stepped aside, opening the door wider. Then come in, I said, my voice calm but cold. They entered hesitantly, their footsteps echoing against the wooden floor. My apartment, though modest, must have felt like a palace compared to whatever misery they had crawled from. My sister glanced around, her eyes lingering on the neat shelves, the warm light, the kettle still steaming. He kept his gaze low as though afraid to meet mine. I poured tea, deliberately slow, letting the silence weigh on them. When I placed the cups before them, they reached out with trembling hands, whispering thanks. I sat across from them, watching every movement, every flicker of emotion. Inside me the storm had not calmed. I felt anger, yes, but also a strange satisfaction. They were here, broken, dependent on me. The power had shifted and I held it firmly. Yet beneath that, a question lingered. Was I strong enough to face them every day, to let them into my space, to carry the weight of their presence without drowning in old wounds? I didn't answer that question then. Instead, I leaned back, my eyes fixed on them. You wanted my help, I said. Now you'll see what that means. They nodded again, their faces pale, their bodies tense. And in that moment I knew, I hadn't let them in out of kindness. I had let them in to begin something only I understood. They sat across from me, sipping tea with trembling hands, their eyes darting nervously as though waiting for my verdict. I leaned back in my chair, silent, letting the weight of the moment press down on them. They thought they had found refuge. What they didn't know was that they had stepped into a cage I had built long ago in my mind. The plan unfolded slowly, deliberately. I didn't rush. I wanted them to feel the sting of dependence, the humiliation of needing me for survival. The first step was simple. I controlled their meals. I cooked and they ate only what I gave them. No choices, no requests. My sister, once pampered and adored, now sat quietly at my table, waiting for scraps of kindness. He, once proud and confident, lowered his head as he accepted whatever I placed before him. Watching them swallow food in silence gave me a satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. Then came the task. I asked them to clean my apartment, scrub the floors, wash the dishes, polish the windows. My sister's hands, once manicured and delicate, grew rough from the work. My ex-fiancé, who had once promised to build me a home, now bent over my sink, scrubbing plates until his knuckles turned red. Each chore was a reminder of what they had taken from me, and each moment of obedience was proof that I had taken control back. I didn't stop there. I made them run errands, carrying heavy bags from the market, waiting in long lines at the pharmacy, fixing small repairs around the apartment. They never complained, though I could see the shame in their eyes. My sister avoided my gaze, her cheeks burning whenever neighbors saw her struggling with tasks she had never done before. He kept his silence, his pride broken, his shoulders hunched. One evening I asked my sister to iron my clothes. She hesitated, her hands trembling over the fabric. I don't know how, she whispered. I looked at her, my voice cold. Then learn. You had no trouble learning how to steal what wasn't yours. Her face flushed, tears welling up, but she obeyed. Watching her press the iron clumsily against the cloth, I felt a strange mix of anger and satisfaction. The turning point came unexpectedly. It was late at night and I overheard them whispering in the living room. My sister's voice was broken, pleading. She doesn't want to help us. She wants to punish us. He sighed, his tone heavy. I know. She's making us pay for everything we did. Their realization was clear. They finally understood that my actions weren't born of kindness. I wasn't saving them. I was exacting revenge. And yet they stayed. They had nowhere else to go, no one else to turn to. Their dependence on me was complete and I reveled in it. But revenge is a dangerous fire. It burns bright, consuming everything around it. The final confrontation came when my sister, exhausted and broken, finally spoke up. She stood in the kitchen, her hands clenched, her voice trembling but firm. What do you want from us? Do you want us to suffer forever? Haven't you hurt us enough? I turned to her, my anger boiling. Enough? You think this is enough? You took my future, my happiness, my family's love. You stood beside him while I stood alone. And now you ask if this is enough. My voice rose, sharp and cutting. He stepped forward, his eyes pleading. We know we destroyed you. We know we don't deserve forgiveness. But what do you gain by keeping us here like this? I stared at them, my chest heaving, my hands trembling. I gain the truth, I said. The truth that you are weak without me. The truth that you cannot stand without the person you betrayed. I gain the satisfaction of watching you kneel, of seeing you stripped of the pride you once carried. The room fell silent, heavy with the weight of my words. My sister's tears streamed down her face, her shoulders shaking. He lowered his head, his voice barely audible. Then you've won. Something shifted inside me then. Their brokenness no longer gave me satisfaction. Their tears no longer fueled my anger. Instead, I felt a strange emptiness, as though the revenge I had carried for years had finally run its course. I realized that keeping them here, forcing them to suffer, was chaining me to the past as much as it chained them. The next morning I made my decision. I called them into the living room, my voice calm but firm. It's over, I said. You've paid enough. Not because I forgive you, but because I refuse to carry this weight any longer. My sister looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. You're letting us go? I nodded. Yes. But understand this, I will never forgive you. You will never be part of my life again. What you did cannot be erased. But I am done letting it define me. He swallowed hard, his voice low. We understand. I opened the door, the same door they had once knelt before, and gestured for them to leave. They stepped out slowly, their faces pale, their bodies trembling. My sister turned once, as though hoping for a final word of kindness. I gave her none. I closed the door behind them, the sound echoing through the apartment like the closing of a chapter. For the first time in years I felt free. Not because I had forgiven them, but because I had released myself from their shadow. My revenge had been served, my strength proven, and my heart finally unburdened. I walked to the window, the morning light streaming in, and breathed deeply. The air felt different, lighter, cleaner. I wasn't the woman who had been betrayed anymore. I wasn't the woman who had lived in bitterness. I was someone new, someone stronger, someone free. And as I stood there watching the world outside, I knew my story had finally found its resolution.